Hey everyone! Today we'll be continuing with retopology of our character. Last time we covered the head, and today we'll be covering the rest of the body. There's a lot to cover, so let's get right into it. First, we're going to want to get in our core loops. Again, it's important to use reference. If you're having trouble figuring out where to put them, you can use vertex paint to draw out a sketch for you to follow, like the one I did here. Using multiple colors helps with defining what goes where, and I use these little black lines to help me know if I need to redirect a face or turn it into a corner. Remember, this is just a sketch, so it doesn't need to be exact. I'll put a link to a fully marked up image in the description if you want to use these as a guide. To start, make a necklace of faces where the neck meets the shoulders. Keep it low poly for now, you can add detail later. Extrude out the sides and pinch the edges of the new face so it forms a trapezoid, and extrude the slanted edges out towards the arms. And that's a perfect segue into discussing how to redirect loops. Basically, if you need to collapse or expand out faces, an easy way to do this without making tris or n-gons is to use a trapezoid. First, thin the edge you want to expand, then extrude out the side edges, bridge them together, and now you've turned one edge into three. If you want to redirect one face into two, you do a half trapezoid. You can also do a variation on this if you need more geometry in a small space without drastically increasing the poly count. Just inset a face or selection of faces, and now you have a new face loop. This is probably one of the most important lessons in topology. You need to learn how and when to redirect edge flow. Mastering this will help you figure out the most optimal way to get the best deformations with the least amount of faces. Now we're going to do the same thing we did for the shoulders, but for the back. Extrude a face down from the shoulder pad, then again. Bring this one down to the bottom of where the shoulder blade is, then press I to inset. Move the newly created face a bit inward, then press X to delete the face. Then add a loop cut on the side closest to the armpit, and then extrude out the faces until they meet up with the shoulder pad. Connect them up, and now that we have that, we can extrude out a ring of faces for the arm. Don't worry that it looks a bit wonky, we're going to add more loop cuts later once we get all the foundations in place. Go back to the shoulder blade where it meets the armpit and extrude down a face until it meets the waist area. Then extrude inward. Then again. Extrude a face out from the shoulder blades towards the inner center, then bridge the new face together with the curve from before. Next, at the front of the armpit, add a loop cut and extrude down to the bottom of the breasts. Then extrude across, then up, make sure the edge is this angle. Then, once the new face reaches the top of the breasts, bridge it with the top shoulder pad, adding a loop cut if necessary. Next, create a ring of 8 faces around the side of the breasts. Make the faces long enough so they cover a substantial portion. Then select the frontmost edge ring with Alt-click, press Ctrl F and select Grid Fill. Additionally, you can inset these faces to give yourself more geometry to work with. Then connect it up with the other faces we made earlier, adding loop cuts where you need to. Now we're going to tackle the stomach. I've seen 2 ways of doing this. The easy way is to just have a tube of faces down to the hips, and hey, that might be all you need. But the other way I've seen is to create a ring of faces around where the belly button would be. I'm doing the ring method here because it matches more closely to how a muscle structure would look on an actual human being. Now I know Cassie isn't human, but she is humanoid, so it works. I'm then bridging it up to the rest of the geometry. Now for the pelvis, go to the leg loop we created at the start, make sure it's at an angle. This helps the legs to deform better than if it was just a tube of faces that extrude straight down. Then in the corner, near the top of the leg loop, extrude and bridge a face up to the breast geometry. Now for the butt, it's basically the same process as the breasts. Create a ring of faces around the curve, make sure they don't connect in the center, then extrude the faces towards the center, extrude the bottom of this new face around the groin, and connect it up to the faces we made for the stomach earlier. Next, where you bridge the stomach faces, create a ring connecting it up to the back, add a couple loop cuts, then extrude it up to this back area. Then at the corner, add another loop cut and bridge it to the front of the body. And that should be the basic outline of the torso. At this point, you can start filling in faces, relaxing them, and adding loop cuts where you need to. Be sure to take your time with this step, especially when you get to the arm and leg loops. Make sure they have an even amount of faces in the loop. Once you have the body done, we can tackle the arms. Extrude a loop down to the elbows, and then again down to the wrist. Bevel the elbow with Ctrl B. Make sure you scroll up once to keep the original cut. Make the bevel kind of thin, just make sure it encompasses the elbow hump. At the back, inset the faces to add some deformation geometry. Then add in some loop cuts to the rest of the arm to even out the faces a bit. Now for the hands, we're going to start with one of the fingers. We're basically doing a small version of the arms, extruding, beveling, and insetting where you need to. The loops can be pretty dense. I'd aim for 10 faces in a ring to a minimum, but do whatever works. When you get to the tips, extrude inward and grid fill. Once you're happy with the finger, disable the shrink wrap modifier. Something you can do is duplicating the shrink wrap modifier and applying one of them so the geometry is where it says it is. What I mean by that is, in order to stay non-destructive, Blender is storing the mesh 2 times, one pre-modifier and one post-modifier. You're always interacting with the geometry pre-modifier until you apply it. This is why it's extremely important to apply any modifiers you're done with and to disable others in the viewport that only need to be active during render time. Now back to retopology. Duplicate the finger across and adjust the proportions as necessary. Do the same for the thumb, just delete one of the knuckles and rotate it around so the thumb knuckle is facing towards the front. Then re-enable the shrink wrap modifier. Readjust proportions as necessary. Once the fingers are in place, connect them together. This can get a little tight because the units are so small, but be patient. On the thumb bridge, inset the faces. All that's left to do is to connect it up to the wrist. Make sure to redirect any faces you need to in order to bridge the gap. The legs are pretty much the same process as the arms: extrude, bevel, inset, etc. For the feet, bring a loop from the back, wrap it around to the front, and connect it. And now all you need to do is fill it in. Be sure to add a few edge loops on the main body of the foot so the toes can deform easier. Unlike the rest of the body, the tail is much easier. Since her tail has a physical tie, it can be its own object. It's just an hourglass-shaped cylinder. I didn't even retopo this one, I just dissolved some faces on the high poly mesh. For the tail, it's just a process of creating a tube of faces and connecting it up. Sharp conical points like this are a case where tries should be avoided. I know that goes against pretty much all the 3D modeling advice in existence, but in this case, it's pretty much unavoidable. And it'll save you so many headaches in the long run. If you look at similar character models from video games, it's the same deal. Sharp conical point, use a triangle fan. I've rotated the tail 90 degrees to be flat outward so I can rotate it whichever direction I want without weird deformations. Once you're happy with your retopo, apply the shrink wrap modifier. Don't apply the mirror modifier because we still have some work to do that the mirror will save us some time. Now that the retopo's done, we can get started on the face. Extrude the eye socket back, scale it inward, then grid fill. Turn on proportional editing with O and make the eyeball more concave. Now comes the tricky part. Create a round cube, then position it in the eye socket. If you don't see round cube, enable the extra mesh extension in the extension section of preferences. Select a square of faces in the front, invert the selection with Ctrl-I and delete them. Then back in object mode, scale it down so it fits in the eye socket, and here's where it gets challenging. This is all purely guesswork figuring out where the rotation point of the eye is. If anyone else knows an easier way to do this without as much guesswork, please let me know in the comments. Once you're happy with the rotation point, in edit mode, invert the scale on the local y-axis. This way, once we add a pupil, the eye will look better from a side profile. Then back in object mode, duplicate the eye object, then invert the Z rotation and the X location for the second eye. Now we can start to work on the mouth bag. That's its official term, Google it. First, disable the mirror modifier on the body. This makes it easier to see what we're doing. Then select the loop of the mouth, extrude it back, then extrude and scale out. You might want to enable the mirror modifier temporarily so the mesh lines up, then extrude a box back to the neck, fill it in, then at the bottom, inset and extrude down. Then round it out so it looks more like the inside of a mouth. Now for the teeth. These can be as detailed or as simple as you want them to be, or in some cases you can get away with none at all. I'm just doing a thin cube bent into the shape of teeth. I am adding some details such as rounding them out so it doesn't look like she has a piece of paper in her mouth when she grins. Now for the tongue, create an 8 vert circle, rotate it 90 degrees on the x-axis in edit mode, delete 6 of the faces so there's 1 corner left, add a mirror modifier with X and Z mirroring, then in object mode, position it inside the mouth, keep it centered on the x-axis by pressing Shift plus X when you move it, then shape it into a tongue shape, following the general contours of the mouth bag. Once that's all complete, all that's left to do is one final pass, making sure everything looks good, and then we're done with retopology. In the next part, we're going to be modeling the hair, so look forward to that, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye bye!